Cool. Yeah, so if we could just start off with both you just giving a brief introduction and then we can get into it.
Terrific. Why don't I go first and keep it brief, and so then I can we can talk about Rachel's background, which is far more impressive than mine. Um,
Yeah, being honest.
I disagree. My name is Alok Vasudev, and I'm a co-founder of Standard Crypto, and we're a venture capital firm focused on the crypto space. And we fund everything from protocols to companies to currencies to holding digital assets like NFTs directly. And my background before that is once upon a time deeply technical. I did a PhD in computational physics at Stanford, but I've been a venture capitalist ever since. Before Standard Crypto, I was an investor at Benchmark Capital, where we were fortunate to partner with a number of the most important open source businesses, marketplace businesses, and social networks. But it's been in a crypto focus for me ever since.
Sure. And nice to talk to you, everyone. Also, thanks for inviting me. My name is Rachel Lin, co-founder and CEO of SynFutures, a DeFi derivative protocol, enabling trading of anything, anytime. My background, it's kind of interesting that I take these steps from all the way traditional finance to fintech to centralized finance to DeFi. So I started my career as Deutsche Bank, specializing in fixed income structure derivative. Before I joined Ant Financials to lead the first versions of Global FX Center and the first versions of blockchain platform. That's when I grew lots of interest in blockchain and later on joined Bitmain and Matrix Port. So back in Matrix Port, I was one of the founding partners and leading head of DeFi and lending departments. Yeah, so the recent journeys, of course, were the most exciting one was that I started with a group of very talented people, SynFutures, the DeFi derivative protocol. Yeah.
Terrific. Should I take it from here, Alex?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Perfect. Rachel, it's such a privilege to get to interview you. We are some of the lucky few that's had a chance to work with you over multiple years now and over multiple companies and projects. We're fortunate to have been formative investors in Matrix Port, as well as seed investors in SynFutures. So we've seen Rachel wearing all hats, and she's from executive to entrepreneur to everything, and she's terrific across the board. So it's a real thrill that the crypto community and the world will get to know more of you over time as SynFutures continues to make incredible progress. But I wanted to start somewhere in your background. I wanted to start at Ant Financial. I think that in crypto, a lot of us in crypto are really learning about finance for the very first time in a crypto context. But you have a really deep financial background at one of the world's leading
firms. So I wanted to maybe spend a little bit of time learning about in a traditional finance company like Ant, with that background, what are some of the things that have served you really well about being from there? And what are some of the things that actually force you to go back and relearn some lessons later on?
Sure. I mean, thanks a lot for the kind words. We've always feel very honored as well to have you as our investors along the way and guide us through. I think the states of Matrix Port and also SynFutures won't be here without your help. Talking about N financial and the previous background, I would say that the good thing that I learned, number one is of course the understandings of the financial world, the logic, and the risk that could be associated. And the second things that I learned is that how to organize projects and how to really coordinate a team back in, like, I think in financial, because I think it's also a fintech company, and it works in a way that every project is like an entrepreneur and an enterprise, and everyone has to walk through everything from zero. And I think the third amazing things that that being fortunate enough is that in such an organization, you get the chance to meet with great people and learned about the latest trends, and the latest progress in the industry. I think that my knowledge into blockchains all start from there, and every day you got the chance to talk to different people and then have a very broad range from like AI, e-commerce, and even pharmaceutical and day-to-day life. So it's great in a platform that you could start the career and also learn the best practice in the organization that have accumulated the experience through time. I would say that comes also at the, I think at some points it become a disadvantage if you stick too much to the world behind. That might be even more vivid. So when I first started my first, I think like quit Deutsche Bank to N Financial. If you work in large organizations and learn the knowledge about, I mean, the old world of finance, you get to feel that, hey, there's some way for doing something, and it seems that it's very natural for you to just go this way all the way down, because it was like when you breathe always in this way. You never have a second thought that why should you breathe the way you are right now. I think I encountered such a cases when I think that we should absolutely go for A, because this is how they do in the traditional world, but turn out that an option B is more feasible. And the reason for old world to go for option A is just due to some limitation back like hundreds of years ago. So it's very important, I think, that it's a very important lesson for me to learn back then as well, that you have to just amplify everything that you learned and really start from the beginning, because I mean, welcome to the new world, right? Yeah.
No, that's fantastic, and you're so right. It's funny, right? In traditional finance, concepts that are so core to crypto are entirely absent, right? We have very little notion of community ownership or stakeholdership. We have very little notion of open source, very little notions of composability, which comes as a byproduct of open source. And all of these things force you to completely rewire your instincts as you think about how to build financial products and services. So maybe, Rachel, why don't you, let's talk about derivatives in crypto and in DeFi a little bit. Why don't you maybe spend a little bit of time telling us about that market and kind of giving us a state of the union on derivatives in crypto?
Sure. Derivative, to put it simple, is anything that trades that I think, I mean, let's take futures, for example, is It's a kind of instrument for you to trade against a certain underlyings, in the futures. And it's not exactly the underlying, but it track the pricing of the underlying. So in traditional finance, derivative has always been a much larger market than the spot markets. If I remember correctly, back in like 2019, for the FX market, for example, derivative market could be taking like 70% of the whole total shares. And this has been true in the crypto market already. Although the crypto market is young, but we saw the trading volumes of crypto market, of derivative rise rapidly. And I think just last year, in some of the world's largest crypto exchange, derivative trading volume has been like 300% of debts in sports. But in DeFi, the derivative trading has just begins. Before recent launch of one of the leading DeFi derivative protocol called UIDX, it's just a fractions of the whole markets. And but with the some of the largest market leaders in DeFi gaining momentums with the improvement of the infrastructures, DeFi derivative has begun to gain attractions. However, it's still in its very early stage in DeFi. There's no absolute dominance protocol, I would say, that as of today, and new protocol has been launching their products and upgrading their products, and we're very excited to see lots of innovative idea comes up. And that's in terms of volume. And in terms of product wise, due to the innovation features of crypto, you are seeing lots of interesting things coming up. In traditional markets, say in traditional finance, you never saw instruments, say perpetual futures, which is futures keep rolling and never ending, but it's one of the largest trading instrument already in the crypto. And in DeFi, you are seeing even more innovations coming up every day, say perpetual options and different chunks of investments and different strategies. And yeah, it's a very interesting time to be right now in the crypto market, and more so in DeFi world.
That's terrific. That was a great overview. We should double click on a few of those ideas or concepts. The first one being, I think this is something that's a little bit non-obvious or counterintuitive, and it's that why for derivatives specifically, higher performance blockchains are needed. And in ETH's case, why only with the launch and kind of rise of certain side chains and certain layer twos are derivatives possible. Maybe talk a little bit about that. Kind of why was infrastructure specifically a gate for derivatives, whereas things like borrowing and lending or traditional DEXs operated fine in a pure L1 regime?
Sure. For derivative, the risk parameter is much more than traditional spot. Say if you exchange, say, one ETH for dollar in a spot exchange, it's just a pure instant settlement. But for a derivative, there's different dimensions, say a time dimensions, and there is a margin requirement dimensions associated with most of the derivative right now. So that's when you enter. And the other thing, so it naturally comes with higher cost of what we call gas, or it would take up much more room when you or space and when you first enter positions. And what's more importantly, for derivative, there's always this concept of margin and liquidation, which means that if a price, you could take a certain leverage on a price, but if the market become volatile, you would need to calculate whether you have enough money in your positions to pay for that future position. So in that, you need a very good systems and the infrastructure for you to track the ever-moving price, and also for you to be able to act quickly, say top up more cash into the positions to avoid liquidation, etc. In order for a derivative to function well. And unlike sports, you just exchange one thing for another, and that's it. Yeah. So that will pose much higher requirements for the infrastructures.
Yeah, that's spot on. That's spot on. That's totally right. And I will say it'll be interesting to see as L2s inevitably become more crowded, how that sensitivity still plays out, because I think that, right, these are nonlinear instruments, and I think they're quite sensitive to conditions that relate to liquidations and all that. But that's part of what's exciting about these new products, and seeing how the market reacts to them, and different opportunities and challenges that are created by them achieving more and more scale. So when you were conceiving of SynFutures, Rachel, derivative broadly, synthetic futures, talk about the thought process that led to this being the specific flavor of derivative that you thought made a lot of sense and inspired you to start architecting.
Sure. We've been discussing about what we should start. I mean, that could combine with our expertise and the market needs. Of course, our team has a background of both the global investment banking derivative desk, as well as blockchain tech. And DeFi derivative is still young and early, and has a huge opportunity ahead. That's, of course, the directions that's not hard for us to decide to go. But in terms of what types of derivative we should be offering, we've always bear in mind one key consideration factor is that we have to do some things that's truly making advantage of blockchain, because if you're entering the world of blockchains and build derivatives on top of that, you always love to build something that is facing the futures, and that's that you know that the traditional internet world wouldn't be able to compete and compare. And we actually draw the thought one day from the early days of internet. So if you look at early days of internet, why would you start if it is an exchange of information, and then the early adoption, of course, for a marketplace is e-commerce. So what is the reason for you to stop visiting your downstairs convenience store and switch your shopping's behavior and go for internet to shop in Amazon? When we look at all those days, I think it is not user experience for, say, at the very first beginning, because think about it, you have to register, you have to link your credit card, you can't see the goods, and you would need to wait many days until it is delivered. Just like the day when we started our DeFi project, the user experience is bad, and then the infrastructure is poor, the speed and liquidity wouldn't be of comparison for traditional finance. So we start to think about why should people start to switch their nice user their customs, their users behavior, their trading on a traditional and CeFi platform to DeFi. The answer is similar to a traditional e-commerce. You start to shop on Amazon because you find the goods that you wouldn't be able to find downstairs. Because it lowered the entry barrier for the merchants so much that you could find a varieties of goods that you wouldn't be able to shop nearby. So you wouldn't care about the, or you would sacrifice a little bit on the user experience. And with that, demand raise, infrastructure, logistics will improve, and then that's when all those major items also become popular on internet. So for us, we're thinking that like from day one is similar. It should be a very open platform, and you should enable users to trade and lease any assets as much as possible, for people to come to the platform and find that this is the only place for them to trade the assets that they desire. So with that in mind, we started to build these platforms to be a completely native permissionless. And I think even still today, we're the only ones being doing this. And we would love to make the experience for people to lease their assets so easy, that we create this synthetic AM model for people to just have one, say, USDC, a stable coin, to create and trade whatever trading pair they want. They could trade crypto majors or coins, they could trade NFTs, they could trade any metaverse asset, they could trade hash rate indices. And I mean, in the regions that regulation allow, they could even trade the real world assets. So it will give the users reasons to switch from a very nice CeFi platform to a DeFi platform. Yeah, that's the thought behind.
Amazing. And I so love your point about part of what's special about DeFi is this idea that now you can innovate in finance or start a new financial market or a new financial product without gatekeepers. And just how the internet,
Yeah.
3 girls in a dorm room could start an internet company, whereas previously it required much more barriers to cross and surmount. Right, in 5 years ago, if you wanted to create a new structured product, a new derivative, a new financial market, you basically had to be behind one of the big desks at one of the big banks or financial companies in order to do it. And now DeFi and the way that you've done SynFutures, it's back to that, 3 people in a dorm room can now kick off a new financial market, can start a new financial product. And I think it's really powerful. A frame I've been using for a while now is user generated markets, as an analogy to user generated content on the internet.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful idea.
Yeah,
So
like, user generated market. Yeah.
It's yours. You can take it.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. Let's talk about that.
So one thing that I've really admired about SynFutures is the community that you've built. You've done an incredible job of really building a set of really engaged and excited users and followers. I would love to learn, and I'm sure our audience would. How'd you do that? What makes and talk about what makes great community building? What makes a great community? Maybe what are some of the tricks of the trade that you felt SynFutures did well early on, that got you to that position here?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we also love our community, and this is one of the most exciting part to work in a DeFi project as well. You saw communities so passionate, they've been giving you constant feedback and even write very long emails and help you promote your projects. So it's also a trial and error process. I think at the core is that everyone's very genuine and listen to the community. So we started as the community, firstly, just borrowing some experience from the traditional finance and CFI marketings and making some, launching some fun competitions and some memes and also at the same time at a higher level we started to share about our thoughts with the communities and write articles about the market and the insight, because the team also has an good background from finance and blockchains. And later on, I think very quickly, we found that there are some very active members already out there that been constantly respond to you, giving you good ideas and also provide very valuable feedback. That's when we start to think about this. Why not just work together with our community? So I think we also learned the advice from some of our advisors and KOLs on how to build a community, and started a series of community building activities from the for example, we have launched and then launching 3 different tiers of products, and number 1 is an ambassador program. So we recruit ambassadors from all over the world, and we set the missions for them. It's like Mission Impossible, right? Although that's after you read the mission, you will still be there. So we just give them a bit of our thoughts and also discuss with them on what could be the mission for every ambassador to help grow the community and promote and provide feedback to the projects. And very soon, all across the globe, there are about, I think, 500 to 600 people join our ambassador program and complete at least 1 or 2 missions. So they started to help us promote our communities and to introduce their friends, and even later on, help us with our documents, and then they make videos and try to explain our platforms in their local language to various different friends and communities. This has been very powerful. We interview some of the ambassadors, very active ambassadors. They came from like Africa, they came from South America, they came from Europe, they came from everywhere across the globe, and they've been putting so much energy and time into it. That's very inspiring. And that's for the ambassador program. And the other thing that we understand is that we can't grow our projects without the help of investors like yourself and the other peers and our partners. And so later on, I think recently we also launched another program called Future X, which we have the fortune to invite Alok to join as well. And it creates a platform for our investors, the influencers and different projects and founders and the community members to join together and discuss about different topics and give us inspiration on what to go next. So this is from another group of people that's been supporting our projects. And we're also about to launch another project called SynFutures Academy, because we noticed that there are lots of people who desire to learn about DeFi, and they would love to also contribute and learn about the crypto market, the financial market, the blockchain technology as a whole. And we're thinking that, hey, why not just gather the people together, and they will create these academies. Firstly, SynFutures people could start it on some of the knowledge we know, could share, and later on just invite the whole world to help us build these Wikipedias of DeFi blockchains. And so it's really the community that's been contributing a lot and give us inspirations. Yeah. So this is just some of the example, and I mean, of course, other more, I think, traditional CeFi marketing that you saw are giving up NFTs to different people with different achievements. We're launching interesting gamify projects for the community to finish and learn throughout the process. Yeah, it's also fun, and throughout the process, we learn a lot.
It's amazing, Rachel. My reaction is the depth and the layers and how all the strategies fit together. It's a really nuanced and thought through strategy, and I can see why it's worked so well. I think some of the tactics that SynFutures has employed to grow this community are going to become case studies on community building and community management for other protocols to emulate and learn from. Right. I think so many people think community is about standing up a Discord and then tweeting a bunch. But it's so much more than that. And hopefully that walkthrough you gives a glimpse as to where the depth can come from. And right, it's not just about having people, it's about making sure that you have people who have skin in the game to help grow the community. It's about making sure that there's an educational component so people are using the product in the right way. And again, it's very impressive stuff. I'm really glad everyone got to hear you walk through all of that.
Thank you so much. I think that we don't have a marketing background. None of us was doing marketing before, but we learned a lot from like investors like you and the KOLs and advisors as well. I think that at the core is that we do respect the community members and cherish their. I think we pay more attention on that. I think that's in mind. That it will. I think the community will feel that and grow together with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrific. And in a sense, I think this applies to a lot of parts of crypto. It's that you're probably better off not having had the marketing background and actually being able to approach community building from first principles as a problem that you can solve in its own right, rather than thinking there's a playbook that you can apply from somewhere else. But it's terrific. So moving on, I'm very interested. I know that there are a few interesting NFT related projects launching at SynFutures. Maybe talk about those a little bit, just because NFTs have exploded over the past couple months, and I love this intersection of DeFi and NFTs as well.
Sure. It's still first just a prototype, but due to the natures of our platforms, users could just lease any assets anytime. So NFT is, of course, one categories of assets that's excite lots of people and have lots of potential on. And the reason why we are able to launch some of the NFT futures, which means that you could even, long or short any NFTs with just very fractions amounts of value of that NFT piece. The reason why we are able to do that is just that the underlying mechanism is the same. We have this unique synthetic AM model for you to just track the pricing using what we call ERC20 token, that's like USDC or other I mean like a common token that you source in the blockchains. And we can't grow this without the help with some other existing work of other protocol. For example, right now, there are lots of protocol out there that are already been doing the financializations of NFTs with two major directions. One is called indexing. So one CryptoPunk piece of art is just unique and then and it's very illiquid, but there are protocol out there for certain groups. I mean a lot of different CryptoPunk NFTs to be pulled into and let's call a pool and index and minted into fungible tokens, what we call ERC20 tokens. And then with that index tokens, there is a market that representing groups of NFTs. And there is another directions of financialization out there called fractionalization, which means that for one piece of very high value NFTs, you'll be able to split it into millions of pieces, and each was a fractions of the value of the original NFTs. And there is already some of the existing protocol out there that's been doing financialization. And for us, we are building another layer that is the derivative layer on top of what we call sports, the existing work of our peers, so that you'll be able to even short an NFTs or take leverage long. So this is also the beauties of DeFi, what we call money Lego. You could always saw what's out there in the market and also build on top of that. Yeah.
Terrific. Levered long crypto toads. The future is going to be amazing. So I know we've got a few minutes left, but one thing I was just curious. I wanted to learn what are some of the markets that SynFutures will enable that you're most either excited about potentially trading yourself, or that you think are going to be markets that are unexpected that could really be enabled by SynFutures, that could become popular and kind of the world doesn't know it yet. I can go first. My favorite example is synthetic hash rate. I think that we've always talked about what would it look like to have a market for hash rate, which is of course a measure of economic security in different blockchains. And I'm really intrigued by those markets and how people can express an opinion on hash rate, whereas previously an opinion on hash rate was kind of bundled with an opinion on price. And so I think it's really interesting to be able to separate those two. So that's my example, but I'm curious if you have any.
Yeah, I think hash rate is definitely one of those that you wouldn't even able to find today in centralized exchange. So that's something that's amazing. NFT futures, of course, is a type of assets I'm interested about as well, simply due to the fact that there are so many new products coming in, and we also build it in a gamified experience. So it was like a Tinder app for you to like or dislike. With one click, you'll be able to long or short an NFT. And but what surprised me a lot is the user-generated market, as you mentioned. At some points when we lift the alpha, we saw volume growth, and there are lots of pair. I'm sorry that I even haven't heard about. And there are some of the pairs that's, I think some of the gaming pairs are also catching lots of attentions. And for a user, they could just supply very limited amounts of USDC and create a market themselves and then just promote it. And that's something that's very interesting. We're seeing, I mean, with our efforts, say some of the most popular gaming apps are already listed on our platform. And the other exciting part that I haven't even briefed to you, but and about to, is that we would love to also introduce the first inverse futures contracts in DeFi, which means that you'll be able to margin say for BTC USDC, if you put USDC as margin, is a normal contract, but if you put BTC as the margins, it is an inverse contract. So we will be able to also launch some of the inverse pairs, so people could even use, say, their I don't know, say if Axie Infinity's tokens become very popular, they will be able to just use that token to list their favorite pairs. So yeah, I would love to wait and see what is the interesting pairs coming up. Yeah,
that's incredible. I love that idea, and I didn't even know about it until just now. But that's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I know we're out of time here, so I can hand it back to Alex. But Rachel, thanks so much. We've been such fans, and we're delighted to be supporters and part of the SynFutures community and team, and I think it's going to be amazing as we continue to execute down the roadmap and more SynFutures products and markets start to develop. I think people are in for a real treat.
Thank you so much. And I would love to say, I mean, like here also take the chance to thank you all as well. And for all the audience that, I mean, like it has been a great journey with Standard Cryptos. Sometimes the whole team also feel very touched for the efforts and time that you put into to help us. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Always. And thank you. Alex, back to you.
Sure. Yeah. No, this was great. Thanks so much, Rachel and Alok. I mean, it's definitely fascinating for me. I'm sure it's quite interesting for everyone else, even if they don't have that much of a kind of trading or like derivatives background. So that was great. And for everyone else, we'll have the next session in around 13 minutes. So people can stay on the Zoom or hop off, whatever they want. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for organizing all this. Great conference, great initiative.